Good morning, students. Today I am going to discuss the composite viscera of female. The composite viscera of female means it includes the uterus and its appendages and urinary bladder and the rectum and some other structures associated with these important three visceras. If I show you the composite viscera, this is the composite viscera and they are present or situated in the lesser pelvis or pelvic cavity. The composite viscera of female, which includes the urinary bladder, is front, and in the middle is the uterus with its appendages, and behind this is rectum and anal canal. So all these three structures, important or main structures, they are situated in the pelvic cavity or lesser pelvis. And you know this is pelvic brim. So below pelvic brim is the pelvic cavity where you will get these three important viscera of female together called the composite viscera. So now I have taken it out from the pelvic cavity, and here you can see all the three important structures from before backwards. This is the urinary bladder, which is cut open to show the interior of the urinary bladder, and here is the ureter, which is opening into the base of the urinary bladder, and behind this bladder is the uterus, and on each side there are appendages, means the uterine tube and the ovary, and behind the uterus is the rectum. This is rectum. Now let us come to the uterus and its appendages, which is the main organ of the composite viscera in female. Bladder and rectum, they are both common to male and female, so I will discuss mainly the uterus and its appendages. I also uploaded one video on uterus. Probably you have seen that video, and in that video I described some of the important aspects of uterus. Anyway, I am once again repeating the important parts of uterus and its appendages, and then I will show you how to hold the composite viscera as a whole in anatomical position. Come to this part. This is uterus. This one uterus, and you know the uterus having different parts. It can be divided on different ways. Structurally and functionally, the uterus is divided into two broad parts. One is the body, the upper part, which is muscular part, and it is about 2/3 of the whole length of the uterus. And below the muscular part is the fibrous part called the cervix, which is the 1/3 of the total length of the uterus. But the lower part or lower 1/3 part of the uterus, mainly fibrous, but 10% muscular tissue will be there in the structure of the cervix. So body and cervix, but anatomically we know the uterus having three parts. What are these parts? This is uterine tube of this side, uterine tube of this side, opening here, the 2 points. If I join these 2 points, the part above is the fundus, and below that part is the body, and it extends up to the constriction here called the isthmus. Below isthmus is the cervix, that you know from my previous video. Then what are the features, external features of the uterus? Anteriorly it is flat, this surface. So anterior surface is flat, but I am turning it. You see the posterior side, which is convex, this one. So there are two surfaces, anterior flat surface, posterior convex surface. Then the borders, there are two borders. One is lateral border of left side, one is lateral border of right side. So two borders, and the shape of the uterus, it is pear-shaped. Now what is inside the uterus? If you cut this section in the funding region, there is no cavity inside fundus, but below the fundus there is a cavity called uterine cavity, If I cut the uterus sagittally, it looks like a vertical slit. But if I cut the uterus coronally, we will get a triangular cavity inside the body of the uterus, and base is above the line joining the two orifices of the uterine tube, and below is the apex where the level of isthmus. Inside the isthmus we will get an opening called internal os. So this is the triangle which is the uterine cavity, and the uterine cavity below the internal os, it is continuous with the cervical cavity, and cervical cavity it ends at the external os. And you have seen from my previous video what is internal os and what is external os. So in between the internal os and external os is the cervical cavity, and uterine cavity is continuous with the cervical cavity through the internal os, and vaginal cavity it is communicated with the cervical cavity through the external os. This side where the uterine tube is attached called the cornu or angle of the uterus, this one, and this is uterine tube, and anterior and in front is one ligament. That ligament is the round ligament. It is passing through the inguinal canal and extending up to the labia majora or close to labia majora. So I am turning it to show you the attachment of another ligament. So this is the posterior side, this is uterine tube. So below and behind the uterine tube is the another ligament which is going to be attached with the ovary. This is ovary. So this is called ligament of ovary. So at the cornu there are three structures. From anterior to posterior, round ligament of uterus, this one in front and below the uterine tube, then uterine tube, and below and behind is the ligament of ovary. So these three structures are attached at the cornu of the uterus. And you know the length, breadth and thickness of the uterus from my previous video, but the length of the uterine cavity is about 6 cm. Though the total length of the uterus is 7.5 cm, but the length of uterine cavity is about 6 cm because the fundus is solid, there is no cavity inside. So only this cavity it is found in the body and in the lower part, that means in the cervix. Then come to the different angles of the uterus which is found by the body and the cervix, and by the cervix and the vagina. I have already told you, or in my previous video you have seen, there is anti-flexion junction of the body and the cervix at the level of internal os or isthmus, and another angle is there at the level of the external os where there is angulation between the cervix and the vaginal canal. So this upper one between the body and cervix, the angulation which is forward, this angle is called the anti-flexion, which measures about 125 degree, and below the cervix it makes an angle with the vaginal canal. If this is cervix, this is vaginal canal, this finger, so angle between these two is a antiversion, and this angle is about 90 degree. But this measurement, this antiversion and anti-flexion may be changed. So this measurement I told you, anti-flexion 125 degree and antiversion 90 degree, provided the urinary bladder in front and the rectum behind are empty. So now we know the different angles and different parts of the uterus. Now I am holding the uterus in anatomical position. How to hold it? This is urinary bladder in front, rectum behind, this is uterus. So I am pressing by my thumb the body of the uterus in front so that the anti-flexion here it is observed. So, and this is the external genitalia. I am pressing this with my 3 fingers and uterus forward. So this is the anatomical position because the whole thing is looking downwards and forwards. So this is the anatomical position of the composite viscera of female.